had, at a dinner, had warned Prince Charles that the boys were mixing with Tom Parker Bowles, Camilla's son, who had been taking drugs, and they said, you know, he's a bad influence. When that dinner table conversation got back to Camilla, she struck back by making comments about the Van Cutsem children.
The presence of the Queen added the aura of royalty and the rigidity of protocol. With her status defined by her role as a mistress, Camilla had to be seated away from the royal family.
She knew that she wouldn't be sitting with Charles, but when she read in the papers, nobody had the courtesy to tell her this, that she was not only not going to be sitting with Charles, but she'd be sitting over the other side of the church, somewhere at the back, I think she felt a bit piqued.
We've got a royal mistress whose status and position is still very ambivalent. And of course the whole pond is made muddier because there are so many people stirring away in it.
Charles faced a dilemma. If he attended, Camilla would be effectively snubbed. If he stayed away, he could be accused of letting down the bridal couple and their families. It became the war of the wedding, and Camilla won.
For the first time since I can almost remember, the Prince of Wales actually stood up and got counted and showed some real fighting venom in favour of Camilla. And for the first time, Charles said, obviously, fine, I don't like this either. I'm going to find a good reason not to go to this wedding.
Charles seems to have learnt nothing in the sphere of public relations. He doesn't know about damage limitation. He doesn't know how to see a problem that's coming down the road and take avoiding action. And in the Van Cutsem wedding, we see a royal piece of machinery which doesn't work.
During the Queen's Golden Jubilee celebrations in 2002, an open-air pop concert was held in the grounds of Buckingham Palace. Most members of the royal family attended. In the row behind the princes, Camilla sat with her friends Angus Ogilvy and his wife Princess Alexandra, the Queen's cousin. When Angus sadly died of cancer in 2004, Camilla was not allowed to be near the royal family at his funeral. Things were different in King Edward VII's day. Most of the aristocracy knew about Alice Keppel, but the public were kept in ignorance. Her identity was not disclosed by the deferential press of the time. The British press still kept her king's secrets in 1936. Edward VIII's romance with twice-divorced Wallis Simpson was unknown until he abdicated and they went into exile. But the world knew too much about Camilla's role in the breakdown of Charles's marriage to let her be forgotten.
The problem is that he now cannot dump or ditch Camilla because he's gone too far down the Camilla road to have made all that unhappiness and created so much misery for the monarchy, for Diana, for his children, for everybody, for her sake. He now has to stick with her. It's almost like Edward and Mrs. Simpson back in the 1930s. He couldn't drop her. I mean, he didn't appear to want to, but it's a situation whereby he's made his bed, he has to lie in it. It's almost like the famous saying that, you know, when you marry the mistress, you create a vacancy. And I've always felt that Prince Charles was a natural bachelor. I remember the days before he was married, and I thought, he doesn't need a wife. He's got housekeepers galore, he's got valets, he's got, you know, butlers, he's got everything that a normal man needs to run his household. A wife was just an accessory. What he really needed was a mistress.
Another contender for that role was blonde Australian-born Lady Tryon, married to another of Charles's friends. Nicknamed Kanga by Charles, she ran a smart dress shop in London. She was injured in a fall and confined to a wheelchair and died shortly after Diana in 1997. Before her death, she recalled her friendship with Charles.
Just because he happens to be Prince of Wales doesn't mean he's any different from lots of other friends, and I love my friends and I love him a lot, but this very different thing, saying you're in love with someone than that you love them. And my friends have been a wonderful, wonderful support.
After their parents' separation, William and Harry were given a young nanny, Tiggy Legg Burke, a daughter of a courtier. Her family were respected Welsh landowners, and Charles often stayed on the family's Glanwsk estate. Both Diana and Camilla were jealous of Tiggy's easy relationship with Charles. This led to rumours that despite his reliance on Camilla, Charles still had a roving eye.
Camilla seems to be the kind of nanny that he had when he was a small boy and that nurtured him, and the person he ran to when he was upset. And she sort of replaced the mother that he never really had because his mother was too busy running the country or reigning. And I think he's now old enough to feel a bit trapped by that. He has had friendships in inverted commas, with other ladies. And maybe they were when Camilla wasn't available, who knows, but he certainly has had other friendships. And perhaps he thought, well, you know, if I were a free agent, I'd be able to have a little bit more fun.
Camilla, how do you feel in Chile?
Camilla's reputation preceded her. When her old friend Lucia Santa Cruz invited her to a home in Chile, Camilla received the frenzied paparazzi treatment once endured by Diana. There is a profit in pictures of Camilla, and those who take them sometimes get closer than she would wish. The strain on her was evident, but by taking bodyguards paid by Charles to protect her, Camilla will avoid this ordeal in future. Being the prince's companion meant that she was never really free from press attention, even on a night out at the London Ritz with her elderly father, Major Bruce Shand. Sometimes she welcomed organised publicity as part of the strategy to gain public acceptance. But eating a sausage could be risky for the image if there was a photographer around.
I think the British press love to have a bit of a laugh at Camilla. She doesn't quite have it. They have a wonderful time making jokes about how she doesn't quite carry it off.
Camilla feels at ease with the hunting set, which Diana disliked. She's at her most confident on horseback and can even joke with the press.
Hello. I'll wheel my bullwhip at you in a minute.
Promises, promises.
Do the press treat her well?
I don't think Camilla gets a particularly fair press, but once she came into that firing line, she's always going to get shot at. I mean, it's a bit of a nightmare for any woman, least of all Camilla, to be permanently compared on the looks front with Diana. I mean, most women, even supermodels, sort of suffered a bit when, in comparison to Diana. You know, I don't think that worries Camilla particularly. I don't think it worries Charles. I think Charles has always found Camilla infinitely more attractive to behold than Diana. Okay, very strange, but love is blind, isn't it?
Hunting, a country pursuit she shares with Charles, is one of the passions which unite them. However beautiful and accomplished an ambassador for Britain, Diana could not retain her husband's love. Charles preferred the woman who presented no threat to his fragile ego. His wife was simply too popular. But were the underlying cultural differences between Charles and Diana too wide?
Diana was a town girl, married to a countryman, and although she had lots of friends and she grew up in Norfolk and Northamptonshire, she wasn't really a part of that polo-loving hunting group. She did not like horses or horse riding, and she resented the time it took Prince Charles away from her, but also I think because she suspected that he was using the hunt as an excuse to meet Camilla.
William and Harry had to cope with the complexity of their parents' separation and divorce, and with the adverse publicity surrounding it. After their mother's untimely death, Camilla became part of their lives.
I think Harry, more than William, has been really upset by the fact that Camilla walked in and took over Diana's home, Diana's man, Diana's lifestyle, Diana's everything. She stepped straight into a dead woman's shoes. And Harry, who was perhaps you know, the baby of the family, much closer to his mother than William. He bitterly resents that. Prince William seems to be very diplomatic and very conciliatory. He knows his father's had a rough time, and he seems to think, well, if it makes you happy, Dad, fine. Because remember, William hasn't really been around very much at home. He's been away at university for the last 4 years, more or less, so he hasn't had to put up much with Camilla. It's been worse for Prince Harry, who seems very unforgiving and not ready to accept Camilla in his life whatsoever.
They have always felt uncomfortable in her presence, and it is significant that although they moved into Clarence House as part of the so-called nuclear family of the House of Wales, they've moved back into their old apartments at St James's Palace. They just don't want to be close to Camilla.
The couple considered marrying in Scotland to sidestep any difficulties presented by the Church of England, of which Charles will be supreme governor. Charles's divorced sister Anne married Tim Lawrence at Balmoral under easier Church of Scotland rules in 1992. For Charles, a compromise was reached.
The Church has had a very significant role in forcing Charles's hand in marriage. They have been very uncomfortable for a long time to see Charles and Camilla living, as they see it, in sin. The difficulty they faced is that the Church is split over this. The evangelical side of it really believes that Charles is beyond the pale and can never really hold any responsible role within the Church of England, and so they don't want to see a marriage at all. The pragmatist side of the Church of England wants to see this problem solved, and in the end it was the pragmatists who won.
Camilla was carefully positioned during the Jubilee pop concert in Buckingham Palace Gardens. Not allowed to sit beside Charles and his sons, she was kept well away from the Queen, who simply ignored her.
I've no idea what the Queen thinks of Camilla Parker Bowles, and very, very few people do have an accurate idea of what the Queen thinks of Camilla Parker Bowles. I think it's quite eloquent that the Queen has obviously been at some pains to distance herself from the Prince's mistress, despite complicated and expensive attempts by the Prince to manipulate the media in Camilla's favour. People don't yet regard her as somebody they want to see on the balcony of Buckingham Palace one day. They may never think that she's a suitable person to do that. And until then, I'm sure the Queen is wise to leave her own views tantalisingly unspecific.
As head of state and supreme governor of the Church of England, the Queen is always conscious of the example she sets. For years she has kept a delicate balance, knowing that Charles's adultery with Camilla could easily impact on her own standing and popularity. For this reason, she avoided confronting the Camilla issue.
The Queen has her own thoughts on this. She has a constituency she has to answer to, the right-minded people of this country, people who believe in morality and not in adultery, people who she wants to represent. She wants to put distance between herself and Camilla because she has her eye on history. She believes that she is now contending with Queen Victoria to be the great sovereign of this nation, and she doesn't want anything to taint that history when it is written. And certainly by involving herself with Camilla Parker Bowles, it can only be a downside. So the Queen will always maintain a very large distance between herself and Camilla.
Charles told the Queen that Camilla is the one non-negotiable area of his life. He made public appearances with Camilla, which put the Queen in a difficult position.
We can see over the period of the last 3 or 4 years that she's been snookered more than once. She has been pushed by Prince Charles and his courtiers into doing things that she would prefer not to do. The Queen does not accept Camilla Parker Bowles, and that is a problem for the future.
The plan is for Camilla to be Her Royal Highness the Duchess of Cornwall while the Queen is alive, and Princess Consort when Charles becomes king. This is an apparent contravention of English law, but it leaves the door open for her to become a Queen Consort.
While Charles is living with Camilla, and they're married in all but name, That doesn't seem to matter much to people, to the British public at large anyway. They sort of think, oh, well, he deserves a bit of happiness. But at the same time, if you question them and say, would you like Camilla to be Queen, they get horrified. The fact is,